Hey everyone, think about the last time you were at a grocery store. You hear that little beep when an item gets scanned, right? It feels like magic, instantaneous. Well, today, we are going to pull back the curtain on that magic trick and meet the tiny, invisible brain that makes it all happen. So, take a look at this. This is the GM802 module. And yeah, it kind of looks like a leftover part from an old flip phone or something, but this little guy is one of the biggest unsung heroes of our modern world. It's the eye and the brain inside basically every barcode scanner you can think of. It's smaller than a postage stamp, but its impact, it's absolutely massive. And that's the real question, isn't it? How does this little chip translate a pattern of black and white lines or a jumble of squares into useful information, in the blink of an eye? Well, that's what we're going to figure out, and we're going to use its own user manual as our treasure map. All right, so first things first. Before we can understand how this little thing thinks, we have to understand how it sees. What are its physical capabilities? What are the limits of its digital eye? Let's take a look. What's really smart about this is how simple they kept it. You might expect, a dozen different models, but nope, there are just two. S for short and L for long. And the only difference between them is the lens. The S model is for close-up stuff, like a self-checkout kiosk where you put items right up to the glass. The L model, that's for when you need a bit more reach. Maybe you're a warehouse worker scanning a box on a high shelf. Simple, elegant, and job-specific. And this is where you see just how impressive its real-world performance is. The manual points out a few key specs. First, a 360-degree roll angle. That means you can scan something upside down, sideways, you name it, and it just works. That's a huge deal for speed. Then you have a 67-degree viewing angle, which gives it this really wide field of vision. It's not picky, you don't have to aim perfectly, and the accuracy? It can read codes down to 10 mil, which is tiny. We're talking about the super dense codes you might find on small electronic parts. Okay, so the scanner can see the world with some serious accuracy. But seeing is only half the battle, right? To actually be useful, it has to understand what it's looking at. It needs to be fluent in the many, many different languages of barcodes. And when it comes to barcodes, you can pretty much break them down into two main families. And I guarantee you've seen both of these out in the wild, even if you didn't know what they were called. On the one hand, you've got your classic 1D, or one-dimensional barcode. Think of that picket fence on a can of soup. It holds a pretty simple string of numbers, and that's about it. But then you've got the 2D, two-dimensional barcode, like a QR code. Because it uses a whole grid of squares, it can hold a ton more information. We're talking website links, payment info, the whole shebang. And this is where the module's real power comes in. It's a polyglot. It can read pretty much everything. From the EAN13 code on your groceries, to the code 128 on a shipping box, to the QR code at a restaurant, those tiny little data matrix codes on circuit boards, and even the complex PDF 417 codes you might find on a driver's license. It speaks them all, fluently. But this is where things get really cool. See, a scanner on a factory floor has a totally different job than one at a library checkout desk. So this module can actually be given a unique personality, like a specific work style to perfectly match whatever task it's been given. These personalities are called read modes. You've got continuous mode, where the scanner's light is just always on, always searching. That's perfect for an automated assembly line where things are just zipping by. Then there's induction mode. It just waits patiently, and when it senses something is in front of it, it wakes up and scans. That's your self-checkout. And finally, manual mode, where it only turns on when you pull a trigger. That's your classic handheld scanner. Now, this is the part that sounds like science fiction to me. You have this tiny chip, probably soldered onto a circuit board deep inside a machine. How on earth do you tell it which mode to use, or what kind of beep to make? It's not like you can plug in a keyboard. The answer is just its genius. You program it by speaking its own language. The entire setup is done by scanning special barcodes that are printed right in the user manual. You want to switch to induction mode? You don't write a line of code, you just scan the induction mode barcode. It's an incredibly clever and self-contained system. And the level of detail you can control is just amazing. Using these codes, you can change the sound of the beep, how long the light stays on. You can even tell it to add a specific word or character before or after the data it sends out. Its entire behavior can be rewritten one scan at a time. So let's zoom back out for a second. We've seen all the crazy cool details of how it works, but what does all this tech actually do for us? Where is this invisible workhorse hiding out in our day-to-day lives? Before we get into that, let this number sink in. 1 gram.
The entire module, with all of that advanced processing and image recognition, weighs 1 single gram. That's less than a paperclip.
And that 1 gram of technology is, well, it's everywhere. It's in the retail checkout, the warehouse scanner tracking your packages, the system that reads a patient's wristband in a hospital, the automated factory line making sure every part is correct, the gate that scans your train ticket, the kiosk where you buy your movie tickets. It is the quiet, tiny, reliable engine that so much of our world runs on. And I love this quote from the manual because it really gets to the heart of what this thing is. It's not just a little camera. The manual calls it an advanced barcode decoding algorithm, which developed on image recognition algorithm. In other words, it's a tiny, specialized piece of AI running a super sophisticated program to find and translate barcodes in a split second, no matter what. So the next time you're checking out and you hear that familiar beep, you'll know the secret. It's a 1 gram brain speaking dozens of languages with a personality that's been perfectly designed for its job. And it really makes you wonder, right? What other invisible workhorses like this are out there, hiding in plain sight?